is up, everybody? Welcome to the Believeland Media OHSAA High School Football Playoff Special. I'm your host, Kevin Sleds. With me, I have a few of our reporters with us. We've got Mr. Lucas Cochran, who covers Summit County and surrounding areas. How you doing, Lucas?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing good. Excited to talk about some playoff football here.
Oh, yeah.
And then in the Stark County, Massillon, Canton area, we've got David McCauley, who's been with us for a little while now, and newest member of Believeland Media, Gavin Hess. What's going on, guys?
What's up?
Not much.
All right, so we're gonna go through all the brackets and just talk about who we think are the favorites, and then we'll kind of talk about the areas that we covered and some of the teams we like and the seasons they had. So we'll get the brackets pulled up here and get started with Division One, Region One. Number one seed is Mentor. They went 10-0 on the season. They'll be facing St. Ignatius. We were talking before the show. St. Ignatius 1-9 doesn't mean a whole lot because of their strength of schedule, and they actually beat Mentor last year, as Lucas alluded to.
But this year they only lost by 6 this year early in the season, so I'm really excited to see how that pans out. I don't think they'll be able to get it, but I definitely think they'll give Mentor a scare.
As the other higher seeds, you got number 2 seed Toledo Whitmer at 8-2. Number 3 Perrysburg. They take on Medina, who's had a down year this year. Massillon Jackson and Canton McKinley, who just played a banger of a game. Gavin was there. I'm sorry, Taven was there for that one. But those are really the top 5 favorites. You can't count out Lorraine either. They're pretty tough. And St. Ed's at 5-5 had kind of a down year, but again, strength of schedule, the record doesn't mean a whole lot. So, what are your guys' thoughts? I'll start with you, Lucas, on this region.
I think this region's interesting. A lot of wild cards. I mean, you got Cleveland Heights, who's got one of the best running backs in the entire nation. So, I mean, if he gets started, they can probably keep up with the majority of the teams in this region, even Mentor. And I mean, Marquise Davis, hands down, one of the best. We'll have Marshawn at that Strongsville Cleveland Heights matchup as of now, and that's going to be a really good one. Jackson versus Brunswick. I'm curious to see how that pans out. Jackson will have that, but I would like to see the McKinley versus Jackson rematch. And I mean, Taven, you were there. That one was fun.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, down the line, I mean, St. Ed's could be out in round 2. I mean, that's defending state champs. But again, like I said, they're the defending state champs. So, I mean, St. Ed's could be out round 2. They could be back in the state championship. Who knows? I mean, from there, it's just a bunch of wild cards, I'd say.
Taven, like Lucas said, you were at the Jackson or the Massillon McKinley game. What were your thoughts on that one? And that was a close game. That could possibly see a rematch.
Yeah. Obviously, look at the backdrop back there a little bit. I'm running with the Dogs. I think this is their year. They did lose a close one to Jackson, but I think they can pull through. They have the weapons this year out of that region. They've struggled to win those big games. You lost to Jackson, and you lost to Massillon, but you definitely have the weapons on offense to do it. Cam Montgomery, great quarterback. You have Jamar Johnson. So you have a great run game too. And then your receivers, DJ Britt, Darius Hill, you have Keith Quincy, just a ton of guys that you're just able to get the ball to. And then the defense is great too. You have Dior Garner, guys like Brian Ingram. So just all over the ball.
Dante McClellan, can't forget him.
Offense and defense. All right. So just names on names. I think they got a really good shot to make a run this year.
Yeah, like you're saying, McKinley definitely has all the tools. I mean, I was at Avon versus McKinley game 2. Let me tell you, I mean, there was definitely some questionable calls in that game. McKinley let that game get away from them. But if they play like that, like you said, I think they can take this region. But that's also the problem. You keep up with Avon and only lose by 7. You keep up with Massillon and only lose by 9, but lose to Jackson by 13. So it really depends on what McKinley you're getting.
Right, and I think a lot of that kind of plays into, head coach Antonio Hall. I mean, I've heard I've heard a lot of things with him, so I think it's going to come down to play calling, to be honest, at the end of the day.
For sure.
McKinley.
So, Gavin, any thoughts on Region 1?
Going off the McKinley thing, I don't think they're going to be able to hold out. Later on in the bracket, they're going to have to play good teams. And anytime I see them playing a good team, I don't think they can hold. I think they're going to run out of steam. I think they can't win big games. I would take Jackson over them.
And I think they're going to come back against Jackson. I want to see that rematch a lot, but
Yeah,
I think
be a fun game
this
to
time
watch.
around, I think McKinley's going to come around, get that win.
Division One's kind of everywhere. I mean, after that, there's not too many teams we work with, but I'm very curious to see. That region's one of the craziest ones in all of high school football this year.
All right, moving ahead to Region 2 or Region 5, Division 2. We've got the big dog Walsh Jesuit 10-0 as the number 1 seed. Akron Hoban, Walsh will take on Willoughby South. Akron Hoban at 8-2, the number 2 seed, will take on a familiar foe in Firestone. Nordonia at 8-2 is the 3 seed. They take on Solon. Austintown Fitch coming in the 4 seed. They play Mayfield. Warren G. Harding at 7-3, the 5th seed, will take on John Hay. And you've got Green at 6-4, taking on Painesville Riverside. That should be a pretty good game for 6-11. North Canton Hoover and Uniontown Lake, a 7-10 matchup. You know, 2 teams from the same conference.
That's gonna be a great one.
That should be a good one. And then Boardman, the 8-9 matchup, Boardman and Hudson. Lucas, what are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, this region runs through Hoban and Walsh, and I mean everybody saw the Walsh game. Going into that game, I had Walsh winning. I mean, Hoban's down injuries. Not many people know, but in the middle of the week, they had 2 guys they didn't know at the time, but they did not have their suspensions appealed for their transfer status, so they haven't been able to play. They were down Peyton Cook, so they were down 3 of their top guys on the defense. They were throwing anyone everywhere. They've been playing all sorts of guys. They've been down Ace Brown. They've been down Peyton. Peyton right now hasn't been able to play offense. This team put together a 20-0 win against Glenville, and then they beat team in Pennsylvania, York, 41-6, and then they went ahead, beat St. Ed's this past Saturday, 27-24. So I don't think anybody can stop Hoban. Like right now, they're just putting all the pieces together. That defense looked elite. 3 interceptions in that game. The offense, the rushing game is putting together. The packages they're running. I mean, they still haven't even been able to add Peyton into the mix yet. So who knows?
Taven and Gavin, you got some Federal League teams you guys are familiar with. What are your thoughts? Any of those? See any of those teams possibly coming out of this?
Yeah. I mean, the Hoover Lakes, obviously, the huge matchup everybody's going to kind of watch. You know, you got Hoover. They're both great teams. Hoover, the last time they played the Lake was 2 weeks ago, and it ended with a walk-off field goal. It was 18-17. So I think this is going to be another tough matchup. It's going to be close. But at the end of the day, I see Hoover coming away with this. I just think they're overall the better team. They have more power on the offensive side of things. You have AJ Dolph, who led the Federal League in rushing yards. Who's an absolute beast. You also have Jack Andes, who's a great receiver, and then John Collins, who stepped up in that QB1 role for Zach Brocher, who went down earlier in the season. And he can run the ball equally as well if you need him to. So I see Hoover kind of taking that one against Lake. So
I'm on the opposite side there. I got Lake beating Hoover. I think Charlie Christopher is going to be just too much for Hoover's defense to handle. I think it's going to be a big defensive battle, and then it's just going to be those 2 running backs clashing. And I think Charlie Christopher is going to have more on him than Dolph.
I think that'll be a good one for sure. I mean, another really interesting one I like a lot is Solon versus Nordonia. I mean, we've seen Nordonia at its peak. They took Wadsworth to the end. They blew that game there on the. This team should be 10-0, but they sold against Wadsworth. That was all on them, and they sold against Hudson. I mean, I was at that game. They had that lead and threw 2 interceptions within the final minute and a half. Can't be doing things like that. I mean, that Solon team, you really don't know what you're getting. They just beat Hudson, so I mean, who knows?
All right, hopping down to Region 6. We've got the number 1 seed, Avon Eagles, undefeated at 10-0, taking on North Olmsted. Medina Highland, who's just a machine. We've covered them a couple times this year. Lucas knows a lot about them. They'll be taking on 15 seed Freeman Ross. White House Anthony Wayne, another undefeated team in the 3 seed, taking on Rhodes. North Ridgeville at 8-2, taking on Toledo Start. Wadsworth at 9-1, another pretty tough team, taking on a 5-5 North Royalton team in the 5-12 matchup. You've got Oregon Clay 8-2, taking on Sandusky. The 10-7 is Avon Lake against Toledo St. Francis de Sales. And then finally, the 8-9 matchup, Olmsted Falls against Amherst Steel and their big quarterback, Cole Norris. Lucas, what are your thoughts on Region 6?
Region 6, I don't see anybody running. I mean, it's going to be Avon versus Highland. And I mean, if I'm being honest, Highland hasn't faced anyone like Avon. But people were saying going into that Aurora game that they thought Aurora could blow them out and that they thought Aurora was going to keep up with them and take them down. But, I mean, Highland just beat them 34-0. Now, granted, yeah, one player, their best player at Aurora, Lucas Mannerbaugh, was down. But, I mean, that doesn't make too much of a difference. One player, yeah, it hurts your team, but, I mean, a Highland beat them 34-0. There is nothing they could do. They have one of the best front sevens in the entire high school football. I mean, I don't see anybody better. Like, I mean, they might be better than Hoban's, Walsh's. I mean, theirs is elite. The blocking on both sides. Casey Miser is an absolute machine. Dylan Borla is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in all of high school football. I mean, not many people talk about him, but he has been making some plays. That receiving core, they're running anyone and everyone all over the place. I mean, I think I have Highland in this for sure.
Dave and Gavin, any thoughts on this region?
So I don't know a lot about this region, just to come out, but I mean, Avon's obviously like they're the best team by far in this region, in my opinion. I think their offense is just really it's built well, and I think that they're pretty much going to be the team to make a run out of this region.
I'm just curious to see how it goes. I mean, last year Avon played Hoban and took them to the ropes. I think they only lost 17-14, and that was without Nolan Good. That took a game-winning that took Rock Hill got an interception in the final bit of that game, changed the momentum, and that turned that game around. But I really am curious to see where these two teams go because, I mean, if Highland wins, huge upset, and I think these boys can keep up with it, and I love them. But if Avon wins, I mean, Avon could win states. I mean, their ceiling through the roof. The sky's the limit for them.
I don't know much about this either. I'm purely Federal League, honestly. But based on what I'm looking at, it looks like a really strong region, and there could be some, based on what you guys are saying, some really fun matchups later on in the bracket.
My favorite matchup in this entire one is Wadsworth North Royalton. North Royalton just beat them 44-37 last week, and we get the rematch the week after. These teams are gonna go at it. North Royalton just they're sharing the Suburban League title now on the national side. So I mean, I've go to school in the Suburban League, so I'm really curious. I've been hearing all about it, and I mean, I think that's gonna be the best matchup in all of round one, probably.
Yeah, you got the two big dogs on the top two undefeated teams with Nolan Good, the quarterback, Kent State commit. And then we talked about Casey Miser. I think he won 4 or 5 of our Medina County Player of the Week awards this year.
He's a monster. I mean, he's scoring 30 touchdowns. The amount of times, I mean, he texted me 2 different games I went to. He texted me before. He's like, I'm getting 3+ touchdowns. Mark my words. Gets it. I mean, dude's unreal. But the scariest thing about Highland that I watched coming out of that Aurora game is they didn't have to use Casey. They got 2 big runs out of him. One was a touchdown. One was a 60-yard run that set up a touchdown for another guy. He scored 2 touchdowns, and they used him in that bit. But their passing game destroyed Aurora. I mean, there was nothing. They were running end arounds with Lucas Girding. I mean, that Highland team is talented, and I don't think anyone's ready for this Highland team.
No, I thought that Aurora game would be a lot closer than it was, and I definitely didn't expect a shutout. So I came away from that very impressed. All right, heading to Division 3 now, Region 9. We've got the 116 matchup, a couple of Youngstown teams familiar with each other. Ursuline 9-1 taking on Cheney at 3-6. Second seed Gilmore Academy led by standout quarterback Cooper Pantek. be taking on number 15 seed Akron East. CVCA will be taking on University School. I know Lucas will be there at that one for all the coverage there. We've got Aurora 9-1 in the 4 seed taking on number 13 Bedford. In Geneva, the 5th seed at 9-1 taking on 7-3 Madison. 6 seed Chardon 7-2 taking on 11 seed Talmadge 7-3. Then we've got Kenston at 7-3 in the 7 seed against Maple Heights, also 7-3. And then the 9-8 matchup, we got Hawken against Villa Angela St. Joe's. Unfortunately for them, without Bo Jackson, a huge piece obviously missing out of their offense. What are your thoughts, Lucas?
I mean, Ursuline's got this. Ursuline's got this one. I don't see anybody else. I mean, taking this division. This is one of the weaker divisions. Got a lot of exciting teams that could definitely like upset each other and everything. But in the end, this goes to Ursuline. Nobody's stopping that team. Ursuline only lost to Walsh by 2, and I'm pretty sure Ursuline's about to absolutely blow the doors off of everyone on their place. They're winning states this year. I have Ursuline going D3. Now, I would like to highlight Kensington versus Maple Heights. Phenomenal game right there. Definitely think we got to get someone out to that game. I'm really curious to see. Both of those teams have made some noise this season. Kind of underrated this year. Maple Heights picked up some noise from a couple bigger outlets and stuff. So I'm really excited to see that. University versus CVCA will be interesting. University is 5-5. CVCA is 8-2, I believe. Both teams are hit or miss. I mean, you don't really know. I mean, the US got a really good running back, Cameron Shiver, really good quarterback. And then CVCA's got Charlie Levac and Joey Kopech. So who knows? I mean, I think that game's going to go down to the ropes.
Taven and Gavin got a little shout out. I know,
I mean,
early teams here, but your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. I'd like St. Villa even without Bo Jackson. They have weapons on that team that they can just go to. So I mean, I was there. I watched them play against Glen Oak, obviously. Bo Jackson's the main point in their offense, but I still think that they're able to win a couple games here without him and maybe catch fire. So I still believe in that team. They got a good defense too. So
I don't think they can touch Ursuline. I mean, without Bo Jackson. I'm not trying to shoot you down here, but I mean, that Ursuline team is strong. I mean, when I was at that Walsh game, they had 4 kick returns go past the 50-yard line. I have never seen a team more fast and I mean, that's where I knew like Walsh was legit because I've never seen a team like Ursuline. I had no idea how Walsh beat them. I mean, give credit to the players obviously because they're out there on the field, but Coach Alexander is one of the. I mean, he's the top 3 coach in all of Ohio. I mean, there's not many. He might be the best in my opinion. I mean, that game that he coached was probably one of the best I've ever seen. I mean, yeah, he ran his quarterback 24 times on design plays, but that's what kept. I mean, he knew Ursuline was going to explode. I think Walsh had a ball at least 80% of that game, but Ursuline would drive down to the 50-yard line and score. I mean, I think their quarterback threw, I forget, but I mean, it was a ridiculous game. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you make a good point, but I mean, on the other side, it's going to be a well-coached game because I love everything that Coach Rodsky's about over on the St. Villa side too. So,
oh yeah, no, it'll be a very good game for sure.
We got a shout out from Gene Simmons. What's up, Gene?
Boy, Gene.
Anybody who follows Stark County coverage knows Gene's the man. So,
Gene's amazing. Love Gene.
All right, moving on. Division 4, Region 13. We've got Ravenna 4-6, the 16 seed, taking on Mentor Lake Catholic at 10-0, the number 1 seed. Number 2 Perry at 9-1, taking on Akron Bucktel. And we've got the 3 seed Streetsboro Rockets, undefeated. They've had an awesome season. They've got Cardinal Mooney coming in. West Branch at 10-0, taking on number 13 Hubbard. Number 5 Glenville at 7-3, taking on Notre Dame Cathedral Latin. We've got Canal Fulton Northwest 8-2. Their standout quarterback Chase Badger. They'll be taking on Pepper Pike Orange and Russell Ty, their big time running back. Number 7 Struthers at 7-2 taking on 7-3 Norton, and then 8-9 matchup is Lutheran East at 9-1 taking on Mogador Field 8-2, and their big bruise over running back Drexel McCamus. Some teams, definitely some teams I've covered in this region, so I'll have some thoughts. Go ahead, Lucas.
I take my words back earlier. I mean, besides Region 2 of Hoban and Walsh being loaded, and that first one, this might be the best one and most interesting, especially Division 4. You got Lake Catholic with Frankie, absolute stud. That team could win states. You got 3 teams alone whoever comes out of this region, mark my words, wins Division 4. Glenville, I think Glenville could very well take it. I mean, you got them beating St. Ed's. Yeah, their game against Hoban didn't go too well. I mean, they've had a phenomenal year. They picked it up. They got guys like Cinter Johnson, CJ Newell. They got a good quarterback. I'm really excited to see how that team. But I mean, Streetsboro, Cohen Climac, all around. You find him wherever that ball is, you find him. He texts me. He has a pick six, 3 rushing touchdowns, and a passing touchdown. I'm like, that's insane. And he follows it up with that he had 15 tackles as well.
Yeah, I was at that game. So.
One of the most insane. Now, that's what makes it interesting, though, because Chase Badger, he can make that game very interesting versus Streetsboro. And I'd love to see that game. And again, I really think, out of this, I'd have to say I got Streetsboro. I don't think anybody is going to be able to take them.
Taven, Gavin, any thoughts on this region?
So I know you have a lot of thoughts, and I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I have no clue about any of these teams, so no insight from me.
This is why you're in the Canton area.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin, you think Ravenna's going to win?
No, unfortunately. You know what, though? I have to give Ravenna props because Coach Brian Fuzz Coleman came in and he changed the culture there, and they played. They were competitive. I just covered them last Friday against the 8-2 field team, and it was a 6-3 game. I mean, Ravenna was in it the whole time. Their defense, they beat Mogador early in the season, so they're on the upswing for sure. But having to go to Lake Catholic, I mean, that's tough for anybody, let alone a team like Ravenna.
I mean, like you said, it's obvious Ravenna's not going to win that game. That game will probably be a blowout. But props to Ravenna. When I watched them week 1 versus Kent beat them. Ravenna's offense struggled, but their defense, I got to give it to them. They got a pretty solid defense right there.
They do, for sure.
I think West Branch is another one. They got some big kids on that team.
Their quarterback, Jeremiah Thomas, is a stud. He's a good one.
They got a really good team. That'll be interesting to see them. Glenville versus West Branch would be a pretty fun game. I don't think West Branch can beat Glenville, but it'd be fun.
Yeah, you talked about the quarterbacks at the top. Frankie Trinetti at Lake Catholic, Walter Moses at Perry, Cohen Climac at Streetsboro, and then Jeremiah Thomas at West Branch.
This division runs through quarterbacks. You got Marquez Greenwood. Right now he's a backup at Glenville, and he's actually killing it there. All these teams got really solid quarterbacks that can run.
Yeah, and you talked about Streetsboro and Cohen. He's an all-around player, dual threat quarterback. He's going to be one of the finalists for our Portage County Player of the Year. But Streetsboro has a heck of a defense as well, and Cohen's a big part of that with the interceptions. They had a pick 6 in the last game. I covered him. So Streetsboro's got a shot. Perry and Lake Catholic are going to be tough outs, but. Field, I'm going to give him a shot against Lutheran East because of Drexel McCamus. And anytime you got a 6'3", 250-plus pound running back,
he's a monster.
Who's hard to take down. That kid is a monster.
And motivation. That team's got some motivation that no one else has. You saw what it did for Twinsburg. That team had no business. They had a losing record at midseason. They had no business being the state runner-ups in baseball. So, not saying that's what's going to happen with Field, but that motivation is very much could get them through round one.
Yeah, they suffered the unfortunate loss of one of their teammates, and they've dedicated the rest of the season to him. So they're playing with some heavy hearts, and like Lucas said, a lot of motivation there.
Now, like I would like to say, yeah, Perry is going to be a tough team. But one thing that nobody's talking about really is that Bookdole got a huge piece all of a sudden. Nobody knew, but Hoban's running back Amp transferred over there at some point. No one knows when really. I haven't been told yet. But he's been there and he's been killing it for them. And I think he could be a real game changer. I mean, that's really good running back. That could make that game pretty interesting.
Definitely. All right, heading over to Division 5, Region 17. We've got Canfield South Range at 10-0, taking on Nevada Fairless. The 2 seed Akron Manchester 9-1, taking on Youngstown Liberty. Poland Seminary is the 3 seed at 8-2. They'll be hosting Canton Central Catholic. Garrettsville Garfield against Garfield Heights Trinity. I'll be at that game. Garfield's my alma mater. Garfield Garrettsville, that is. Number 5, Sugar Creek Garraway taking on Cortland Lakeview. Columbiana Crestview at 8-2 will be taking on Martins Ferry. 7-10 is Berkshire taking on Chagrin Falls, and then the 8-9 matchup will be Girard against Richmond Edison. What are your thoughts, Lucas?
I don't really know too much about Division 5. Haven't really kept up, but I know Garrettsville Garfield will be very interesting. Canfield South Range, obviously that'll be a really good one. One team I like to highlight is Sugar Creek Garraway. Really solid team. That team could get it done. I'm really excited to see how this one. Berkshire is another. That could be a very interesting team too.
Taven, Gavin, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean the Canton Central Catholic versus Poland. I mean that's it's an interesting matchup because Central, from what I've seen, is they're an up and down team. I mean they played Perry week 1 and they got whooped. There's no way around that. But me and Gavin were at the St. Thomas game this past Thursday and they curb stomped St. Thomas. I mean I think they were up 45-0 at like the end of the first quarter or something like that. So when Central's playing teams in their division, they're a really good football team. So I think I mean I wouldn't count them out in this division at all. They're a solid team. They got a good run game. They got a good pass game. Their defense is really solid too. So I like Central a lot in this D5.
Central, I feel like we saw the St. Thomas Central game, and St. Thomas just didn't look good at all. Like muffed punts and stuff all the way around. I feel like watching Central against a good team would be a completely different story, especially with the way they played Perry week 1.
I got to give my props in this region, a little homerism to Garrettsville Garfield. They continually, year after year, lose big-time talent. Lost all state players from last year's team and just continue to they suffered a tough loss against Warren JFK in week 2, and that kind of was a wake-up call for them and got them going. They won 8 straight. They got the 3-headed monster at running back with Devin Bates, Harper Troyer, and Brandon Bagucki. And Mike Moser's one of the top coaches in Northeast Ohio and has been now for a while. He just keeps turning out the wins and the conference titles year after year. So I think they have a shot. I know they've had some trouble with South Range in the past, so maybe this is the year they get over the hump. All right, heading over to Division 6, Region 21. The 116 is 10-0 Kirtland against Rootstown. We've got number 2 New Middletown Springfield taking on Sullivan Black River. 3rd seed Pontoon Valley at 9-1. They're hosting Mineral Ridge. Columbia Station 8-2 taking on Rittman. The 5-12 is Hanover United at 9-1 taking on Mogador. Had a down season for the Wildcats. Dalton, the 6th seed, 7-3 taking on Youngstown Valley Christian. And Toronto at 7-3, Sat 7 taking on 10 seed Wycliffe. And then the 8-9 is LeBray at 7-3 against Smithville 7-3. Lucas, any thoughts on Division 6?
Dalton, defending state champions. Definitely be a really interesting one. Jake Levert and Kirtland. Jake comes back pretty soon, pretty sure. So I mean, that'll be great for them. I mean, I'd love to see either team, Kirtland or Dalton, is who I have in this division. Don't know too much about the others, but I know for sure that Kirtland and Dalton, them boys, they can play, and they're some of the best teams out there.
Dave and Gavin, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, kind of like Lucas said, Dalton. They're going to be interesting, but I mean, as you kind of get down to the D5, D6, don't know too much, so can't really talk about anything.
Yeah, I kind of fade out.
I think it's Kirtland's to lose. I mean, that team's just a machine year after year, and I think they're going to be the favorites here once again. All right, finally wrapping it up with Division 7. Region 25, we've got Berlin Western Reserve at 9-1, the 1 seed, taking on Crestline 5-5. Jeromesville Hillsdale at 9-1, taking on Fairport Harding, the 2-15. Number 3 Malvern taking on 14 Lucas. Number 4 Monroeville at 9-1, taking on Independence. 5 seed Warren JFK 8-2, takes on East Palestine. McDonald at the 6 seed will take on Lowellville. Wyndham, the 7 seed at 9-1, will take on Saline v. Southern. And then Norwalk St. Paul 6-4 takes on Cuyahoga Heights. Any thoughts on Division 7, Lucas?
I like Malvern a lot. If I'm being realistic, I really think Malvern can take this one. I mean, obviously, I think Division 7 goes with Marion Local. I think that's a pretty obvious answer. They have the nation's longest winning streak, extended to 58 wins. They just beat an undefeated Coldwater team, 34-0. I know they're not in this region, but I really like to shout them out. I mean, this team deserves it, and I mean, this division's got a few really good ones like Malvern and stuff, but I don't see anybody beating Marion Local in the end.
Dave and Gavin, any thoughts on this one?
I have nothing.
That's what I figured. I'm familiar with a few of the teams. Wyndham, obviously, is a team I've covered. They're 9-1. They just beat Fairport Harding 41-25 last Friday. They've got a stud running back in Jack Eye, who's another kid that's going to be a finalist for our Portage Player of the Year. He's offense, defense, all-around player. Well-coached team with his dad, Jake. I know Western Reserve is tough. Malvern's tough. JFK has had some pretty big wins this year. So I think this one's pretty wide open.
Yeah.
All right. That was all the regions we cover. Let's think about state champions. Who are your favorites, and any teams that you covered throughout the year that you think have a chance to go all the way, and then give your reasons why. Let's start with you, Lucas.
I didn't cover too many teams. I don't even think I really covered anyone in Division 1 besides McKinley when they lost and Ignatius when they lost. I mean, so in Division 1, I think it runs through Moeller. Obviously, St. As defending state champs. That was another one I covered when they lost, but they're 5-5, and this team, everybody's been beating them this year. I mean, most of the teams they got the best of last year got the best of them this year. It'll definitely be a really close one. But I mean, you had Spring. I mean, who knows? Division 1 last year, 12 seed Springfield. A lot of people just kind of forgot about them because they're the 12 seed. They took Eds to the ropes. They lost 31-21 in the state championship. I mean, again, if Ed's Brandon White plays like he did in the playoffs last year, that team's going to be unstoppable. But, I mean, I think Archbishop Muller's got Division 1 here.
Dave and Gavin, any thoughts about who you might have as a favorite?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about D1. I mean, I kind of said it earlier. I think McKinley's got a really good shot. I really want them and Jackson to win round 1 just so we can have that rematch because I think those are the two best teams in the Federal League by far. And I'd love to see that rematch 100%. But I really think it's McKinley's year this year. They have not pulled out a tough game win that's the only problem that I've seen with this team all year. And the play calling's been a little shaky, but you have the weapons. You have Darius Hill, like I said, Keith Quincy, DJ Britt. So you have the weapons. You have the run game with Jamar Johnson and Cam Montgomery, who can sling it as well as run it too. The defense with Dante McClellan and Dior Garner and Brian Ingram. So you just have names on names. And they run deep too in the depth charts. So I really like McKinley, and I think they can make a run this year.
Knew you were going to go with McKinley. I'm going Jackson. Their defense was just too much. When they played McKinley, Cam Montgomery's kind of a mobile quarterback too. And it was like Nolan Foster, Mitchell Brocher, they were all over him the entire game, and they couldn't get anything started. And then on offense, from what I've seen through the stats, Christian Satterfield and Foster Stanley in their run game have been unstoppable. In the one game we went to, they didn't play very good on the run game, but pass game really electrified when that wasn't there.
Jackson's got some good guys. Nolan Colando in the receiving game for sure for Jackson.
They have
but
weapons too.
I mean, if we're going region, it'd definitely be interesting, but nobody's stopping Archbishop Moeller. It's their year. I mean, everybody's sick of St. Ed's winning. I mean, I love those guys. Thomas Chaney, Zach Hackelman, Brandon White, Nate Gregory. They got some really good guys. But I mean, no one wants them to win again, if we're really being honest, besides St. Ed's guys. So, I mean, I think it'd be really nice to see Archbishop Moeller. It was good to see them beat them 35-30. I really like the change of scenery there. It sounds wrong, but I kind of like seeing Eds lose, and I like seeing some of these top teams. It's a very much a change of scenery this year. Seeing Menor sit at seed 1 is really good. I mean, they got Scotty Fox, and they got a couple other guys. They got a really good receiver. I mean, that team could win. Who knows? But, I mean, I'm sticking with Archbishop Moeller.
Yeah, I'm really anxious to see. We talked about Streetsboro, to see how far they can go. I mean, last year they were a 9-win team, had an all-state player, Preston Hopperton, who rushed and had over 1,000 yards receiving and rushing. He's on the Kent State now, and they lose him, and they look like they might even be better this year. And like you said, a lot of that revolves around Cohen Climack and being the two-way player who he is. And I'm just looking forward to see how far they can go. And I'm hoping that they have that Streetsboro Northwest matchup week 2, because I'll definitely be there for that one.
While we're on Division 4, I want to give credit. I mean, Indian Valley could do it. Indian Valley could do it. And everybody knows the answer why. There's one player on that team that has been making noise. He finally got his first Division 1 offer. Not quite sure how he had 0 before. But, man, Grady Kinsey is one of the greatest players out there this year. I mean, I don't see anybody stopping him. He has a motor that you don't see many people like him have one. I mean, that kid's unreal. I forget what it was. I think he's got like 2,500 rushing yards or something and over 30 touchdowns. I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard much about him, but Division 4 is loaded. I mean, with Streetsboro, Glenville, and Frankie Tonetti and Lake Catholic are all in one division, sadly. So, I mean, can't see them all in the Final Four. But, man, a Streetsboro versus Indian Valley, it definitely could be something.
Yeah, the first week or so, with the 16 teams, there's unfortunately a lot of blowouts the first couple weeks. But once you get into that week 3 in the neutral sites, that's when it gets really fun. So looking forward to it, and we're going to be out there covering each week and until the final when we're at Tom Benson for the state the championship. So definitely looking forward to it. Any final thoughts from you guys?
Let's hop back up to Division 2 for a second. I want to get you guys' thoughts on that because, I mean, that division is loaded. You got Walsh, you got Hoban, you got Maslin, you got Anderson, you got Avon, you got Highland. You had Wadsworth at one point. I mean, that division's full. Who do you guys have winning that one?
Go ahead, Gavin Taven.
Yeah,
You go first.
Maslin, I heard about that Jameer Gamble kid. It was the most touchdowns easily around here. I think it was like 17 or something like that. I don't know much about the other teams, but I've heard really good things about him.
Massillon's got a really good team. Jalen Slaughter, Mookie Gamble. I mean that defense. I mean it's Massillon. They're defending state champs. Got to acknowledge that, obviously. So they got a really deep running squad. They got Braylon Tools and Jaw in the receiving. That team's got a really good team. You got Jaden Williams in the linebacker core and stuff. I mean, I'd like to see how that team pans out.
Yeah, right. I mean, they're my favorite for D2. I mean, you said it. You have the receivers. Braylon Tolles just kind of tops off that receiving room, and then you have Jalen Slaughter, who's absolutely amazing. And then, I mean, defensively, they're just as good. You have Mike Wright, Jr., who just absolutely tore up McKinley when they played him last week. So
he is good.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Massillon's my kind of front runner for D2. So
Who do you have, Kevin?
I would love to see a Massillon Highland game.
You like to see Massillon versus Highland?
Yeah, I would love to see that because I mean Highland's just been rolling everybody, and like I said, the way they handled Aurora like impressed the hell out of me. But you know, Massillon's Massillon; they're always going to be there year after year.
I'd love to see Highland win. I mean, I love those guys. I've worked with them 3 times now. I've interviewed them every time, and every single time they've running clock. Forgot to mention they've forced 9 straight running clocks since that game against Hudson. Really would love to see them play Hudson now because I think they could put 40 on them and shut them out. I mean, this Highland team is unreal. But again, I don't think anybody is going to be hoping down the stretch. This team is motivated. They lost 7-2. The tied for 6th lowest scoring game, they were 6 games, the lowest scoring, 7-2. And I mean that team, they got senior class filled with Eli Lee, Tanner Mintz, JB Burke. I mean, they got a really good senior class. They're 0-3 in state championships. They want this one more than anything. All their guys are getting healthy. They're putting pieces. Ethan Rakandish is down on the D line, and I don't understand how no one discovered him as a D lineman because that guy is scary on the edge. And not to mention Ace Brown coming back, Peyton Cook about to be back on offense. That team's about to be loaded, and I think that's gonna be the scariest team in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, just had a big win over St. Ed's.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
You guys want to talk about Mr. Ohio nominations, Mr. Football?
Who do you think?
I think Keller Moton is up there, no doubt. I think he's probably top. I mean, I think he's the number 1 option in my opinion. He's deserved it. 10-0, led Walsh to the number 1 seed, beat Hoban for the first time since 2014 or something like that, or 14 years maybe. I mean, that team's very deserving of it, and I think I'd love to see Keller win that.
Yeah, for me, I think it's going to be Keller or Marquise Davis.
Oh yeah, Marquise. I mean,
that's for what do you have?
465
yards and 8 touchdowns in one game.
The 3 quarters, 26
3 quarters.
carries.
He didn't even play.
Can't forget that.
He's a machine.
That's another thing. I think Grady Kinsey could also win it. He had rest games the past 3, and I think he still reached he hasn't played. He had 5 carries, 90 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And text me that I had 5 carries, 90 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's nothing. He did it like it's nothing. I think he did that in a quarter. I mean, that kid's unreal. I think he's a Mr. Ohio nomination, no doubt.
Taven, Gavin, any thoughts on Mr. Ohio this year?
Again, I really don't know too much outside of the Federal League. I do know though. I mean, I don't know how much he's played, because of his injury. But Bo Jackson, I mean, he's the best player by far that I've seen play this year. So,
yeah, if not for the injury and Ohio State shutting him down, he would have been up there for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it.
All right, guys, appreciate you joining us, and we'll be out there this Friday, and looking forward to getting the playoffs underway, and like I said, running all the way through to the state championships. So appreciate everybody tuning in. And if you're heading out to the games this Friday, enjoy. And we will talk to you soon.